At my sister's wedding, I was forced to sit alone. Then a guest leaned over and whispered, "Act like you're with me. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you believe life always turns tables in unexpected ways." Everyone was laughing, dancing, and celebrating like it was the happiest day of their lives. Everyone, except me. I sat at a corner table, away from the crowd, staring at the people who once called me useless, just because I couldn't afford a fancy dress or bring an expensive gift. My own sister Lily had made sure I wouldn't be seated near the family table. She said it was for the best image. I didn't even argue. I just smiled, pretending it didn't hurt. When the guests started arriving, I noticed how they looked at me. Pity in some eyes, amusement in others. My mother avoided eye contact, pretending I wasn't there. My father, sitting with Lily's in-laws, laughed louder than usual, maybe trying to prove he wasn't related to the embarrassment sitting in the corner. Then, in the middle of that humiliation, a man in a black suit walked toward my table. Tall, confident, with the kind of calm smile that silenced the noise around him. Everyone turned their heads. He pulled out the chair beside me and said softly, "You look uncomfortable." "Act like you're with me." I froze. My heart raced. Who was he? Why would he say that? Before I could ask, he placed his hand gently on mine, just enough for people to notice. And suddenly whispers started. My sister's expression shifted from arrogant pride to shock. Her groom stopped mid-conversation, staring at us. Even my parents exchanged confused glances. The man smiled again and said quietly, "Don't look so surprised, Maria. Just follow my lead." I think they need to see what they've been missing. I had no idea what he meant. But something about his tone made me play along. Within seconds, everyone's attention was on us. The girl they called the poor sister was now sitting with a man who looked like someone straight out of a business magazine. And when the photographer came around and asked if we wanted a couple photo, he said loud enough for everyone to hear, "Of course. She's my favorite person here." That's when my sister's smile finally cracked. But who was this man? And why did he pretend to know me? I couldn't stop shaking. My sister's wedding had just turned into some kind of silent movie where I was suddenly the lead, and everyone else was confused about the script. The man sitting beside me kept his calm smile, like he knew exactly what he was doing. As the waiter poured champagne, my sister Lily marched toward our table. Her perfect smile was fading fast. "Maria," she said through gritted teeth, "you didn't tell me you were bringing someone." Before I could even respond, the man turned to her and said smoothly, "Actually, it was a last-minute plan. I didn't want Maria to be here all alone." "She deserves better company, don't you think?" The entire table went silent. My sister blinked, clearly thrown off. "And you are—" He smiled politely. "Ethan." Then he extended his hand like a gentleman from a movie. "Maria and I go way back. College days." "College?" I almost choked. I didn't even finish college. But before I could correct him, Lily's groom joined her, eyeing Ethan from head to toe like he was evaluating his bank balance. "Ah, Ethan," he said awkwardly. "You look familiar." Ethan's smirk deepened. "I should hope so. I handle a few companies your firm partners with. I was actually invited by your CEO, but decided to come when I saw Maria's name on the guest list." That line hit like thunder. Everyone around the table turned to me, their earlier mockery replaced by curiosity. My father suddenly cleared his throat, pretending to be interested in my college friend. My mother gave a nervous laugh. Even Lily looked like she was calculating what this could mean for her image. Ethan leaned closer and whispered, just for me to hear, "Breathe, Maria. Let them wonder." I felt something strange stir inside me, a mix of relief, confusion, and power. For once I wasn't invisible. People were talking about me, not laughing at me. A few minutes later, as music filled the hall, Ethan stood up and offered his hand. "Dance with me," he said, loud enough for my entire family to hear. I hesitated, my heart pounding, but before I could say no, he added softly, "Trust me. You'll thank me later." And as he led me to the dance floor, everyone stared. My sister's smile completely vanished. My parents looked stunned. The girl they once called a failure was now dancing with a man who commanded every eye in the room. But as the song ended, Ethan leaned in and whispered something that made my heart skip a beat. Maria. I didn't just come here to help you. I came to settle a score. A score? What did that mean? And how was I part of it? My mind spun in circles. Settle a score? What did he mean? I stared up at Ethan, but he just gave me that calm, unreadable smile as we walked off the dance floor. My heart was thundering so loud I could barely hear the music anymore. We sat down again, and before I could ask anything, my sister's best friend, Jenna, leaned over with that fake sweet tone I'd known since childhood. So, Maria, she said, dragging out my name like it was a joke, you and Ethan go way back, huh? That's unexpected. Ethan didn't even let me answer. Yeah, he said smoothly. Maria was the reason I built my first startup. She believed in me when no one else did. The whole table froze. My father nearly dropped his glass. You own a startup? He asked, his voice shaking slightly. Ethan nodded casually. A few, actually. Real estate, logistics, finance. But the first one started because of her. Then he turned to me and smiled, his eyes locking onto mine with a kind of warmth that made the whole room fade away. She doesn't give herself enough credit. She's the most grounded person I know. The whispers began immediately. People who wouldn't even greet me before were now craning their necks, trying to figure out who I really was. My sister looked like she'd swallowed something bitter. She forced a laugh and said, Wow, Maria, you've been busy, I guess. I could hear the jealousy hidden in her voice. But I was still lost in Ethan's words. Why would he say all this? Why me? After dinner, when everyone was busy with toasts and photos, I finally got a chance to whisper, Ethan, what's really going on? He turned to me, serious now. You'll find out soon. Just be ready when I call your name, I frowned. Call my name? For what? Before he could answer, the wedding host announced a special guest speech. And to my shock, Ethan stood up and walked to the stage. The room went quiet as he took the mic, his voice steady, confident, echoing through the hall. I wasn't planning to speak tonight, he began, glancing toward me, but I have to say something about someone very special here. Every eye turned toward me. My chest tightened. Ethan continued. This wedding reminds me of how people often judge others by what they see. But real worth isn't measured by money, titles, or looks. Sometimes, the person sitting quietly in the corner holds more strength and loyalty than anyone in the spotlight. My heart stopped. He was talking about me. I saw Lily's face flush red with anger and confusion. My father looked ready to interrupt, but Ethan raised his hand slightly and said, Tonight, I want everyone to know, Maria isn't just someone I know. She's my business partner. The woman who owns half of a company worth millions, the hall gasped. Cameras flashed. My mother's jaw dropped. My sister froze completely, clutching her champagne glass like it might save her from drowning, and I just sat there speechless. Because the truth was, I had no idea what he was talking about. But if this was his revenge plan, why was he making me the center of it? My pulse was racing so fast it felt like the whole world had gone silent around me. Business partner? I wanted to scream that it wasn't true. But the way Ethan spoke, so confidently, so naturally, made everyone believe every word he said. My father stood up abruptly, his voice trembling. Wait a second, Maria, is this true? You're involved in a company? Dozens of eyes turned toward me, waiting for an answer. My throat went dry. Ethan gave me a subtle nod, his expression saying, trust me, so I did the unthinkable. I smiled. Yes, Dad, it's true. I just never mentioned it because no one ever asked. The room buzzed with shock. My mother gasped, covering her mouth. Lily looked like she was seconds away from exploding. You're lying, she snapped. You can barely pay your rent, Maria. Don't act like you suddenly own a company. Ethan didn't flinch. Actually, he said coolly, pulling out his phone, I can prove it. He tapped the screen and held it up for everyone to see. a news article featuring his company's success story. And right there, in bold letters, was the co-founder's name, Maria Thompson. Gasps filled the room. Phones came out. People whispered. My parents stared at me in disbelief. My head spun. Why was my name there? Why was he doing this? Before I could speak, Ethan said, "When I started my company, Maria believed in me when no one else did. She invested her trust, not money, and that's priceless. I made her my silent partner because loyalty deserves recognition." Tears filled my eyes. I didn't know if it was gratitude or years of pain finally breaking. Lily laughed bitterly. "Please, you're just trying to make her look important. Everyone knows she's—" "The reason you even have this wedding," Ethan cut in coldly. The hall froze. He stepped forward. "Your groom's company was saved by our firm. I signed that deal because of Maria." Lily's face drained of color. Her groom looked terrified. Whispers spread through the room. Ethan glanced at her one last time. "So before you mock your sister again, remember, your wedding only exists because of her." The hall fell silent. I sat frozen, everyone's eyes on me with shock and respect. Ethan leaned in and whispered, "Now we're even." I frowned. "Even for what?" He smiled slightly. "For what they did to both of us." "Because, Maria," he said, "your sister's groom once tried to destroy my company, and tonight was the perfect night to make him pay." But the way he said it, the look in his eyes, told me this wasn't over. Not even close. The air in that wedding hall felt heavy, like everyone could sense that something huge had just unraveled, but no one dared to breathe. My sister stood frozen in her perfect white gown, her groom avoiding her eyes, and my parents sitting stiff, unsure which side to take now. Ethan leaned closer to me, his calm voice slicing through the noise. "You see, Maria, your sister's groom wasn't just a rival in business. He was the one who spread false rumors about me years ago, costing me millions and nearly destroying everything I built. When I found out Lily was marrying him, I realized the perfect way to end this was to show them both what real power looks like." I stared at him, still processing his words. "So you used me?" I whispered, my heart tightening. He looked at me, serious, then soft. "No, I protected you. They've made you feel small your whole life, and tonight, I wanted you to see yourself through my eyes. You're stronger than you think, Maria." For a moment, everything around us disappeared. The lights, the whispers, the shame. I could finally breathe. Then my father stood up, his voice shaky. "Maria, why didn't you ever tell us? We could have—" I looked at my dad and said calmly, "You never asked, Dad. You were too busy judging me. But I don't need your approval anymore." Being quiet doesn't mean being weak. The crowd began to clap, soft at first, then louder. It wasn't for Ethan, it was for me. Lily turned away, tears ruining her makeup. Her groom tried to speak, but Ethan stopped him. "Save it. The deal your company depends on? It's canceled. Enjoy your last night funded by lies." Gasps echoed through the hall. Her groom stormed out, and Lily chased after him. My parents sat frozen, stunned into silence. Ethan looked at me and said softly, "Revenge isn't always about destroying them. It's about showing what they lost when they underestimated you." I smiled through my tears. "Then I guess tonight, we both won." He smiled back, offering his hand one last time. "Now let's get out of here before someone asks us for another business deal." We walked out of the hall together, the cold night air wrapping around us like freedom. Behind us, the lights, the noise, and the people who once looked down on me, all fading away. For the first time in years, I felt seen. Not for what I lacked, but for what I'd become. And as we reached the parking lot, Ethan glanced at me and said with a playful grin, "Ready to build the next empire, partner?" I looked up at the stars and whispered, "Yeah, this time for me." Because the girl they forced to sit alone had just walked out with everything they wished they had: dignity, peace, and the last word.